Welcome guys to our first episode of panindigan na talaga natin yung pangalan natin.
You know, boss is gonna kill me for having this podcast name. I mean, parang scam eh. I mean, Get Rich by Pael and Edmund. But, you know, I think the objective really of this podcast is trying to not give some backdrop or what's happening to kids today. Sorry, kids eh, no? Kala mo hindi pa ako bata.
But makes you so old.
But I guess it's more like a reality situation, like a reality check to what we can really do to help improve, I mean, not just yourself, but even your family, your future family, people around you to have a better life in general, diba? And let's be honest, money is not the only thing, but it's very, very important, right? I mean, if you had to choose to have money or no money, no questions asked, pipiliin mo, syempre may pera eh, diba? Kasi money buys you time, money buys you freedom, money buys you choices also to do other stuff. And I really think that, you know, that view on how money should be looked at, incredibly important, incredibly a priority. And especially when you're young, how do you make yourself rich? Diba?
Exactly. So, disclaimer lang to the people watching, wala po tayong inviting na dinner. Hindi po namin kayo invite sa dinner. But yeah, totally agree, especially I think in the Filipino household. Medyo may pagkatabu kasi when you talk about money. And I think the reason why we want to have this is because we want to open that conversations. You know, if you're looking for a place where you can discuss about money, maybe you can interact with us in the comment section or wherever. But the reason why we're doing this is to really bring awareness and talk about these issues, because at the end of the day, right, we always tell that, or at least what I always tell in my talks is money cannot buy everything. But at the end of the day, everything requires money.
Pero parang kulang eh.
Diba?
Hindi ko alam eh. I mean, this day and age, it can never get enough, right? But, you know, I guess that's not how you want to be looking at it, right? I guess you want to have that abundance mentality.
Right.
Right? Trying to, you know, money, how do you make money grow for you? How to make money work for you? And at the same time, you know, you're having your 8:30 to 5 p.m. job, how to improve some level of skill set. And I think that's also the objective of this episode or podcast, to you know, give them other tools and how they should also be looking at money.
Welcome guys again to our first episode. So we're going to be talking about more of these things. And how do you want to start this off?
Well, we all know what the secret, let's be honest, everybody knows the secret to investing, right? Save a portion of your income, take that 1,000, 2,000 pesos, invest it, whether in the stock market or we'll talk about other asset classes later, and basically have that money work for you, right? I think
so
the secret
that's the key, money working for you.
Yeah, but it's never been that difficult in my opinion. I mean, if you look at the formula, hindi naman siya ganun kahirap eh.
Simple lang.
Simple lang naman eh. Diba?
Save, you invest.
Exactly. I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to know these things. The question is, why can't people do it? Right? So I guess that's the part where we're trying to understand about people's behavior. And it's not just the Gen Z. I feel like this is also a issue with millennials, or let's say like ka-age ko.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to put myself in that category, but I do understand that for many millennials and for many Gen Z, saving is so difficult in today's environment. Diba? And you can attribute it to like two things. First is, you know, the rising costs today.
Okay.
Because of
mahal,
obviously inflation. Diba? And then the other part is, where do I put my money? We advocate for the stock market, but sometimes, especially pag hindi umaakyat, you start to question your investment decisions.
Tama ba to?
Tama ba? Exactly.
Gumagana ba to?
And we can talk about that later on, right? But I guess the first point is about rising inflation. And I can't blame people, because people ask me, like, what's a good number or a good salary that can have a decent or good life, right?
But we want to talk about this investing thing, and we've been doing it at it for how many talks, how many schools already. You know, sometimes paisip ako, is it really more of a, is it an investing problem, or like what you mentioned, it can also be addressing that spending habit and that earning capacity,
I agree.
right?
So which one do you want to
So-
tackle on first?
So I think since we have so many options on how to use our money, maybe we can talk about the rising cost, which is brought by inflation, and I think general spending behavior of Filipinos.
Okay.
Diba?
Let's start with the first one with inflation. So inflation obviously is rising.
What's your opinion for sa Pilipino? Magastos ba tayo or hindi? Hot take.
That's a hard question. And the reason why I think I don't like to isolate it with Filipino. I think most people generally in the world, regardless of whether you're Filipino or Asian, even the Chinese today, you look at the middle class, it's whenever you're like heading into that middle income territory, there's no question being asked because magagastos ka talaga.
Yep. Because of
Because
cost of goods.
This is
and
the only
everything.
time where you're going to be experiencing money. And when you're entering that working class without having experienced those, not just in food, in fashion, in travel, or whatsoever, for me, magagastos ka talaga. Regardless of whether you're just Filipino or even from the Western races, diba? We're seeing it across the board. You look at household savings. Generally, it's been low. And that, for me, makes sense because look at Maslow's hierarchy, right? Then that excess that you have only happens when you reach a certain level of income.
Which we're gonna be talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Diba?
Right? I mean, but for your first point with regards to inflation and the rising cost of inflation, we always blame the pandemic because the pandemic accelerated and changed people's behavior, right? Obviously, coming from the geopolitical crisis from Russia, Ukraine,
And the economy in general.
The
printing of dollars
Yeah.
and everything, stimulating the
Yeah.
economy. But we don't want to get there para hindi kayo ma-overwhelm,
Yeah.
guys.
And that's the reason why inflation, back-to-back years of 6%, 2022, 2023, even hitting a high of 8-9%, today is still elevated. And so what has happened is if you're receiving the same amount of salary 5 years ago, or even if it's gone up like 10% over the last 5 years,
Yep.
it's not enough, right? Because the cost of going out on a day-to-day, even for me, is expensive. What more for, everybody else?
Dati
Sorry,
Dati solve ka na sa 1,000 eh.
Yeah, exactly.
1,000, malaking bagay na yun.
Well,
Pero ngayon, parang when you're going out with that,
well, baka sa'yo lang.
di ba?
But I agree. But I think what we're just trying to point out is that in general, watching a movie, like in my mind was always 100 pesos, 120 pesos per ticket.
Ngayon, magkano na?
I don't know. I was talking to Nina the other day and she was talking about 400 pesos for a movie
for a
ticket. I was
movie.
surprised because I don't watch I thought everybody's on Netflix. So I'm surprised that, even watching a movie today, you're sitting at close to 500 pesos per ticket, right? And I think like entertainment, everything else, going on a date, going out, having dinner, everything is expensive, right? So it becomes very difficult. I mean, people say na magtipid ka, which is, to be honest,
You need to save. right?
to be honest, you need to save.
You need to budget. You
Yeah.
need to have this financial disciplines.
But sometimes you want to splurge or,
Parang how do you reward yourself?
How do you reward yourself
Parang
also?
How do you find that balance?
exactly, diba? Magtitipid ka lang ng
Buong buhay mo.
buong buhay mo. And living thrifty and frugal, there's nothing wrong with that. Let me be clear. That's how you're raised. Fantastic. Right? But sometimes it's also not enough, I really believe, for majority of the middle class. And that's the reason why that mindset of abundance rather than saving is actually much more important, in my opinion, and vital to kids today. So instead of trying to instill the mindset na tipid,
Put your
tipid,
money in the bank.
I feel like
everything.
one of the more important mindsets is like, how do you grow your mindset? I mean, this is for all income brackets, right? Whether you're in that lower income bracket or in that higher income bracket, I feel like everybody has to have that abundance mindset, right? It's because what becomes important over time is that you're not just going to be living for yourself, but maybe living for other people, how you help other people, right? Whether spiritually or family oriented or, just helping other people in need. I feel like that mindset should be your priority. Sabay yan eh. But growing mindset, I feel like it's the growth mindset and is much more important than the tipid mindset.
And I think over the pandemic, right? Yes, it's a reality that yung taas ng bilihin nandun na, right? But I also believe that now is like the perfect time to start whatever you want to start in terms of earning, because the opportunities na meron ngayon because of the digital space, of the change in work environment,
100% agree.
opened so many doors
100% agree.
to have that platform for you to express yung abundance na yun. Kasi diba parang I always hear this na one of the talks I attended is yung speaker na yon is also a financial teacher. Pero sabi niya na nahirapan siya magtipid. Kasi magastos siya na he wants to experience all of these things. So sabi niya, okay, instead na magtitipid ako, I'm just gonna earn more. And that's a solution to, having that rich life.
But it's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Tama.
Let's be honest. I mean, we could talk about it, right?
Yeah.
So, look at the gig economy today. I think the Philippines is one of the fastest rising gig economy countries. So that means people are getting double jobs, right?
Freelancing.
And I feel like it's something the Philippines, because of the pandemic or hybrid or corporate, allows you to work just 2 or 3 days in the office, and then that's the reason why some people are able to manage having double jobs, diba? And that number that we were looking for, case in point, let's break down some of the expenses that
That's a good
okay. So let's say like you take a bed spacing. You're spending like 4,000 or 5,000. Oh, you want to spend on your own.
Let's put 5,000 para madaling complete.
Sure. I mean, if you're gonna get one bedroom by yourself, that's 15,000 automatically.
Yeah.
So let's say your bed spacing or you're sharing a condo, that's 5,000. 5K. Right? Food mo, breakfast, lunch, dinner. At least, sabi mo, 6,000 to 8,000 yan.
Yeah, pwede. Kasi per 2,000 per week, no?
Oh, 2,000 per week.
8,000. Pwede.
That's fair. 7
that's
days
fair.
a week.
Yeah.
Right? 7 days a week. Transportation, utilities. Sige, bigyan mo ng 3,000-4,000. So what am I looking at? 8, 4, 12.
Yeah.
Plus another 5, 17,000.
Wala pa yung kuryente ba dyan? Yung tubig.
Yeah, exactly.
Utilities.
Exactly. So 17,000 for all your basic expenses. And you're asking me to save and invest? Ano ka, joke? Diba?
Yeah. Which is true. Tama yun eh.
Yeah.
That's a reality that you need to face.
And that's not even like living, like, I mean,
it's just existing.
It's just existing.
Wala ka pang experience, wala ka pang luho, di ba?
Oh, wala ka pang pamilya. Diba? What more if you're having a family of 4 or a family of 5, right? And then you have to feed everybody. Yeah, sobrang tipid, sobrang budget na lahat yan eh. Diba? So for many, middle income, I mean, the target really is for this podcast for the middle income, right? Some people work double jobs. So, say you get paid like 40, 45,000. The remaining, sabihin mo, 20,000. Then you get to spend on other items. You have that buffer to spend on other stuff. Think about it this way. You have 45 grand, 45,000 a month. Then you can have sense to travel.
Yep.
You have that access to,
Yeah, you have that luxury to invest, to buy an insurance, to prepare for your finances, to save up for a house, for a car.
Correct.
Or whatever.
That's just living comfortably. From 45,000, if you're able to save 5,000 pesos a month.
Yeah.
Out of 45,000, that's 60,000 a year. In 10 years, with compounding and just having like a 7-8% return, let's say you're buying an MP2, right? You're probably looking at a million in 10 years. So the secret to being a millionaire in 10 years is actually not that complicated.
Yeah. If you have that plan.
If you have that plan and you stick to it, the thing is, 1 million in 10 years, happy ka ba?
Enough ba yun?
Enough ba yun?
Sa taas ng bilihin ngayon.
Diba? Enough ba yun?
Yeah.
Like in another 10 years, what does 1 million? Yes, I saved 1 million in 10 years, but what does that really get me?
That's true.
Right? Again, I'm not criticizing that you don't. You have to. That's the point. Right? But then, I'm just showing to you guys, like, to be a millionaire, it's really this simple. The thing is, can you do it?
Yeah.
Do you have the discipline to do it? And can you actually increase that 5,000 to 7 or 8,000 over time?
Yeah, I think what's very also important there is don't be discouraged on starting. Kasi like what you mentioned, when reality hits after 10 years and you have that million, pero na-realize mo na parang, ay, parang wala na
Kulang.
kulang pa pala to, 'di ba? Kotse pa nga lang ngayon, magkano na?
Exactly.
Right?
Oh.
So the point there is having that discipline
Correct.
and not just settling na, I just need to save 5,000 just to reach that million. Dapat at least every year you also have that goal that you increase on how much you get to invest.
100%
Right?
agree with you. Like, look at you, Pyle, diba? You're young. You have 40, 50 more years.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, diba? Working. Hopefully you don't retire. If you're playing the long game and you're playing that time, right? It's two things. Hopefully your income also grows over the next 10, 15 years,
I think that's the most important thing.
right? And that
Right.
your investments also grows.
Yeah.
Diba? Over that 10, 15 year time frame. And, that power of compounding, I really believe, is what's going to make you a millionaire
Yeah.
by the time you retire. But again, playing this long game is not easy. And I guess that's the reason why a lot of people are playing that short game,
Yeah.
enjoying themselves in the short term in exchange for their long-term financial standpoint. But can you blame them? Diba?
That's true. Totoo naman eh. Kasi, sabi ko nga sa friend ko, ano bro, parang pag when you compare yung mga wages, ganyan, parang, di ba sa Philippines, maliit. Parang dito sa Pilipinas, parang living hard mode pala tayo, no? But I think that molding, dun mo nabibuild yung discarte mo, dun mo nabibuild yung drive mo, yung hunger mo to look for things. And since we're in the topic of income and in this certain age from your 20s to 30s, I think what I really believe, looking at all of these, studying investments and everything, a crucial part of having that successful investment is having also a good income and earning capacity that you have. So maybe I want to ask you this question. We're in this topic of behaviors. What's your take on post-pandemic on increasing your income?
Maybe I should ask you that.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
I feel like my behavior
Yeah.
hasn't changed pre
And post-pandemic.
and post-pandemic,
That's a
right? But I'm also in a different circumstance. I mean, I understand I'm in a privileged circumstance, and I'm always living in the now.
yeah.
I mean, that's how I think. Because when I think about the business, it's always thinking about the future 10, 15 years.
Right.
So how I think about myself today, I'm always living in the now. And I've never been the type of person to splurge on expensive items. That's really not who I am, right? But I don't judge people for buying expensive watches or whatsoever. So really, nothing really changed on my end. But I have seen people change in terms of spending.
Is it what
Because
you,
of the pandemic.
Is it what you call lifestyle inflation or
Maybe because, life is short. So maybe that's the
realize-
reason why you're starting to see people spend more on travel. Dati economy, ngayon business class. Or
experience, no?
diba? Buying new watches,
Yeah.
buying expense. But, say what you want. We've seen this change happen whether rich or middle class. Even the middle class today, we're seeing a lot of people spend more
Oh, that's true.
on concerts. You
On
see what Taylor
concerts.
Swift. Diba? How much did Taylor Swift bring to Singapore's
And
economy?
you have to go. You have a flight, book
Exactly.
your hotel,
Oh.
buy your concert ticket.
Oh, to the one of the most expensive countries in the world. I mean, this is not even third world like Indonesia, or because obviously everybody knows Taylor Swift didn't come to the Philippines. So you're heading to Singapore, spending all of that, right? And the funny thing is, how many people do you know have done it? Marami yan
Ang
eh.
dami.
Oh, diba?
So is it I always ask myself na when you have these concerts, kasi for example, this year, fan ako ni Ed Sheeran eh. And yung ticket niya, like yung VIP ticket niya ngayon, I think it's almost 20,000. And years ago, when he went here, yung VIP ticket niya was like 7,000.
Shit, I
But-
still remember those. I don't remember the last time I watched a concert, but
But when we bought the ticket, first few minutes andun na kami, and
So-
then naka-queue na. So that means, and when we went there, it's full. So does it mean na madaming disposable income talaga ang mga tao, no?
exactly. Diba?
Or
Why are all the concerts today being held in Philippine Arena?
And we have no problem on concerts. We're just pointing out na
People are willing to spend on it.
people are willing to spend on it, and where do they get the money to,
Yeah, exactly.
to do it? Or
Oh, maybe they have the
they
money.
have the money,
Oh,
so it's a matter of priorities. And maybe just to give you guys a context on why we're talking about this. So the Filipinos, iba, nasa 100 million tayo plus. So how many accounts that do we have in investments? Parang like around nasa 2 million mark na ba tayo?
1.5 million.
So that's what less than 1%.
Oh, give or take, say 2%
lalagyan
na
natin
lang.
sa 1%. So we're just trying to point out na since we're in this topic of finance and you need to prepare for retirement on everything, you need to save. Diba? So is it a matter of priorities?
Well, I think that's
one.
one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an important part about people's behavior. Again, nothing really difficult in what we talk about. It's just that, can you blame people for spending on these type of things and
That's true, no?
experiences? I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that you just have to face reality, right?
Yeah.
If you could save that money instead,
Yeah, I
right?
think that's a point that you should take. If I can do this with my expenses, I can also do this with my investments.
yeah, exactly. And you could give or take, do this for any other travel or other leisure activity that you do.
Substantial expense.
Substantial expense. I'm not saying that you want to forego everything.
Yes.
Right? It's just that you just want to be in consideration of how much you're actually spending, so that, again, that secret formula of 5,000 or 60,000 pesos a year that you could possibly save in a year, right? That's ultimately like 1 million in 10 years.
Yeah.
So I think that's just the mindset that we're trying to talk about right now.
That's a good point. Now, maybe going forward with our conversation now, spending and everything. Okay, let's say the next 10 years, ito yung gusto kong lifestyle. Na sige, magsasacrifice ako ng 10 years. Hindi muna ako bawas muna ako sa concerts, bawas ako sa travels, those big expenses, upgrading my phone and everything. So if I save and invest that money, after 10, 20 years, can I have that lifestyle kaya? Na I can have the freedom to travel, I can have the freedom to buy the things that I want, attend the concert that I want to go to. What do you think? Or kung alam lang natin yan, sana
I have this perfect example because Boss, or my father's driver, call him Boss for everybody's reference, did the same thing. Because Boss's driver is forced investment. So save and invest 2,000 pesos nga lang right? And I think he did this for like a good 7-8 years, and that investment went to 200,000 pesos. The problem is he wanted to buy a motorcycle.
Okay.
And you know how buying a motorcycle, obviously there's two ways to pay for it. First is hulugan,
Yeah.
but you'll pay like 60% more because of the interest rate. Or second, you pay everything bagsaan.
Yeah.
Cash. Diba? And so when I was looking at the interest rate, sabi ko, there's no way, I get it that you're only going to be spending like 5,000 a month
Yeah.
for the motorcycle. But in my mind, the 60%.
60%. You can use for other
Exactly.
things.
Exactly. So sabi ko sa kanya, and sabi ko rin, just pay everything, right? The problem is, wala ka na investment. So,
Ubus na.
to answer your question about, okay, does that buy you freedom? My answer is no, it doesn't. Because you have to make it a mindset and a discipline,
Yes.
right? That, this is something that you're not going to be touching anytime soon,
Yep.
right? So you want to travel. I'm not saying like save 30% of your income, 40% of your income, and don't spend on it, right? This 5,000 pesos or this like 60,000 pesos that we talked about a year, just think of it as something that is just in your war chest that continues to keep on growing, that you
Exactly.
won't touch over time.
I think just to add to that, you mentioned abundance earlier, like having that abundant mindset, and itong investing nga, diba? Na parang sometimes maybe some people get complacent na okay, nag-invest na ako ng 2,000 pesos, ng 5,000 pesos, after 10, 20 years, this is going to take good care of me. But I really think at the end of the day, the best investment is in yourself, right? The things that you can increase your income, the things to to expand your network, to reach out to more opportunities. And I think that's the main goal, aside from just investing a certain amount. Because whether that investment goes to zero, but at the end of the day, that you know that you have the skill, the mindset, the network, the value that you can provide, babalik rin yun eh.
That's a fantastic point. And I think that's the 1% mindset that we always talk about, where you're trying to improve yourself by 1% every single day.
Every single day.
Right? Think of it in your case, right? Can somebody, or this is for everybody, right? If I put you anywhere else in the world, could you get a job and could you get a good paying job?
Yeah.
People ask me, yes, I'm coming from a wealthy background, but put me anywhere in the world, I will get a fantastic job. And I guarantee that, no questions asked, with whatever I built also from the last 16 years of working. But for many individuals, I think that's also key. You're trying to find ways to improve yourself, not just financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, and it's a holistic effort, let's be honest. And part of your just thinking of how to improve yourself financially, I bet all other aspects of your life will also improve.
Yeah.
I guarantee that. And I think people need to get to that level eventually. How they look at money, how they look at, everything else in their life. Because there's no way for you to improve one aspect without improving everything else.
Exactly.
So again, this is a holistic effort. You have to find ways to improve everything in your life.
Yeah. I just remember when you were talking about it. So one of the talks that I did, may nagtanong. Kasi syempre, medyo bata pa ako and I'm talking about these things. So I was in a school, na may nagtanong to teacher, sir, magkano na po ba yung portfolio nyo? Ganyan. So of course, yan na, parang curious sila, di ba? Kung magkano yung portfolio ko. And I always tell the story na, you know what? I started in my investing journey with 15,000 pesos. And guys, ngayon, hindi na 15,000 yung pwede ka na mag-start for as low as 1,000 pesos, di ba? And I keep telling that story because that 15,000 pesos, I mean, for the past 10 years, the Philippines wasn't moving. And I'm 8 years into the market na. Well, in reality, parang hindi masyadong kumita. But what I always tell them, that 15,000 pushed me to how can I earn more so that I can invest more? How can I expand my network so that I can know more about the markets to make better objective decisions in my investing journey? And I think that led me to here, right? Being with you guys, being in COL, being in having this kind of network. And that is something that is worth more than 1 million pesos. The network, the opportunity, the skills, the experience that I built. Right? And I think that's something I also want to share to people that at the end of the day, na your pursuit of building that investment portfolio in the short term, what's more important there is really the things that you plant for yourself,
Parang matanda ka na magsalita.
Yeah, Ben.
No, I mean,
So,
that's excellent advice. The things that you plant today are improving all aspects of your life that you know that this will just continue to grow and continue to multiply over time. Diba?
So, speaking of planting, you mentioned kanina MP2. Diba? Maybe you could tell them what MP2 is.
Okay, so the problem about today is where do I put my money?
Yeah.
And we're stock market people.
Yep.
And obviously the number one option for us is the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that the stock market will reward definitely. The problem is people are just looking at it in a too short of a time frame.
Yes.
So when we talk about long-term investing, it's not just 10 years. This is 15, 20, 25 years, right? And I tell people it only takes one good year. Okay? One good year. And everything gets, all the problems that you face in the stock market get resolved.
So is that possible now for those who, maybe the people here that invested for the past, let's say 5-10 years ago, one good year can make that waiting worth it?
And the analogy I always give is Microsoft. Because Microsoft for 10 years did not grow.
Okay.
Post the dot-com bubble in 2000. And for 10 years it didn't grow. Profits tripled, maybe. The stock price didn't go up. And that's the many examples that we're actually seeing here today in the Philippines.
In the Philippines.
Right? You're seeing corporates today make 30, 40 billion. BDO made 70 billion. SM Prime makes 40, 50 billion. Ridiculous
Crazy.
numbers. But the stock price, diba, I know how frustrated you are,
Yeah.
has not gone up. Right? But it only took 1 year, post 2008, 2009, where Microsoft just went ballistic. And if you held on to that same case today, Microsoft is what, $3 trillion?
Crazy.
Diba? So for us, it's only, I mean, that's how you should be framing yourself with regards to long-term investing. Buying good quality companies, right? And, hopefully there is some level of dividend, so at least you're getting paid to wait in the short term. But again, you have to extend that time horizon to not just 10 years. I know it's frustrating, but you have to extend it to like 15, 20 years. In my
Yeah, and
opinion.
for example, they're getting in now. Hindi na kayo maghihintay ng lost decade.
Exactly.
So parang at least kung lugi ka pa in the next 5 years, isipin mo, may mas na lugi pa sa'yo.
Yeah. And that's just the stock market, right?
Yeah.
So there's other options today because of high interest rates.
Yeah.
Today, you could be parking yourself in digital banks, time deposit. Some of them are giving at 6.5%. So just getting the habit of saving and putting it like in a savings wallet and get paid your 6.5% is still decent, right? Other options that you have, like what you talked about, is MP2.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about MP2 is that you can't touch it for 5 years if I'm
Parang
not.
forced savings.
Forced savings.
Ganon, yeah.
Right? Kasi the moment that you do it, hindi ka na pwede umatras. Kasi makikita mo na lang yung interest tsaka yung principal after 5 years.
After 5 years. So parang parang piggy bank saving.
Exactly.
Kasi when you do piggy bank, nagulag ka lang ng coins, ng barya.
Yung problema ng Digibank, pwede mo pa i-withdraw.
Tapos sometimes everyday pa nag-update.
Exactly. Diba? So pwede mo pa i-withdraw. That's
Yeah.
the problem. Diba? So sometimes you don't know, kailangan ko pala gastusin to.
Oo.
Diba? Pag MP2, wala kang choice. Hindi
So-
mo na makikita.
So just to better help them understand on how these things work. So MP2, you get what, 6-7% per year?
Okay, so MP2 is a interest rate free, guaranteed by the government. It's a Pag-ibig MP2 loan, and it's all used for housing,
Okay.
right? And that's the reason why the government guarantees it and it's tax free.
You're right.
I think the last 2 years they did 6 and 7% per year, tax free. Hopefully that's still the dividend rate paying out in the next few years. But if you're looking at, let's say, like 6% in 5 years time, that's not bad.
Yep.
I mean, that's net, so that's not too shabby.
So number one, that dividend yield or yung makuha nilang interest, it changes per year.
It changes per year.
So but the range for at least the past 2 years was 6-7%.
Yes.
And then after 5 years, that's also compounded every year.
Yes, that's correct.
Compounded annually, guys. So
That's actually
those
a
are
good rate.
wonders on how money can work for you,
Yes.
right?
That's just one example.
one example.
Yeah.
So na hindi intimidating kasi 'di ba we talk about these companies, maybe some people think na do I need to know this? And of course that's
Baka matumba.
Oh, 'di ba? That's the reason why we talk about these
Yeah.
things, just to parang help you with that fear and
Yeah.
any doubts that you have when it
Yeah.
comes to investing.
For me, it's still got to be the stock market and the equity market, right? Because you get to be able to participate in the growth of some of these large corporates, right? And we always use SM
Yeah.
or Jollibee because every time you walk in SM and you buy shares of SM, right? You obviously own part of the corporation, and what's better than having SM, which you own, work for you because you're an owner of that company.
Yeah, exactly. Kala ko sabihin mo every time you go to SM walang parking eh.
To be fair to SM, lagi may parking ang SM eh. Daming tao eh.
Grabe, no? So crazy. So, I think just to a case study, now we talked about expenses, right? The rising cost. We talked about dividends, right? We talked about that. And then we talked about also the stock market, a glimpse of the stock market.
Yeah.
So, recently, Meralco, lahat naman tayo nagbabayad ng kuryente. Di ba? Nagtaas sila na naman ng kuryente. So, as consumers, medyo pangit yun. Right? And for the past years, guys, if you don't know, that Meralco has been constantly giving out dividends. At least,
5%.
Yeah, 5% on average. So, they give out dividends for the investor. is this something good na as consumers we know na dagdag gastos yun, pero pag investor ka, does this mean that I would get more dividends, that the stock price will, is it positive for the stock price? How do you view those things when it comes to consumer investor and case study na Meralco?
Yeah, I mean, you get to participate in the growth because obviously electricity consumption is growing. So Meralco makes more money also as a distributing arm of Corriente. And also the dividend policy, assuming the stock price doesn't go up, the dividend payout also increases over time, right? Yeah. So if you're an investor in Meralco, I know you're paying more, but you also understand they're making more, so that at the end of the day, you're also getting paid out more, maybe not to compensate for all your expenses and the Corriente, but at least at the end of the day, you're getting paid out more in terms of dividend. De okay lang diba?
So parang kung meron kang 5% dividend kay Meralco, para kami 5% discount. Kung isiyo mo ng ganun, no?
I mean, I'm not advertising or whatsoever.
Yeah, we're just case study lang kasi yun yung recent news diba?
Yeah.
Para live, how we view these things, right?
The piece of advice, when you're young, as much as possible, you want to be buying growth stocks. You want to be planting seeds in consumer stocks, in my opinion. This is not just in the Philippines. This is globally everywhere else in the world. And for me, it's those consumption stocks that you continue to put in money. You get a compounding effect, not just in terms of increasing sales, right? But you get a compounding effect also as they scale more. And I feel like it's the consumption story that has better sales and better scale. And that's the reason why I usually advise young kids to buy growth stocks and buy consumer stocks as opposed to buying, these safe plays such as Meralco.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you take a look at the Philippines, diba? The Philippines, what they call a consumer country. Diba? Kiling natin gumastos Diba? 7-7, 8-8. Checkout pa lang. Dami na
And I mean, I always use SM as the poster child for consumption because everybody thinks that SM Prime is a property company. Yes, it is a property company, but I use it actually as a poster child for consumption because the crown jewel in SM Prime is the malls. And no questions asked, they are the number one mall today, right? In fact, you're looking at foot traffic, average spending. Nobody's going to beat SM on that front, diba? So if you're going to be buying SM Prime, what's the better way? I mean, you're participating in the growth story. Sabihin mo, consumption is going to grow 7% per year. So annual growth rate, at least 7%. Oh, diba?
But the stock price...
But the stock price did not go up.
Diba?
Oh.
Diba?
So at least you're buying when you're buying time.
Yeah.
Diba?
Exactly.
Because hopefully, and I'm hopeful also, and I'm confident, let me change the word, not hopeful. I'm confident. Also that one day, again, when this macro difficulty that we're facing is done, SM will still be the number one company coming out of this slowdown.
Exactly.
I think that the share price of SM Prime would probably be the biggest beneficiary with regards to consumption story.
Yeah, I think not just one specific company, no. One of the things that I do pag bored ako is I take a look at Google Maps and then I just check out the Philippines. Tapos parang, grabe no, ang dami pang underdeveloped na places here in the Philippines. But when you take a look at the United States, take a look at China, parang halos lahat may city. So that just means, and we're a growing population, so that just means the amount of growth the Philippines has in the next years, for me personally, it really makes me excited and also confident on how not just these companies can grow, but also in a individual level, now you could also think of opportunities on how to ride on that growth.
Yeah.
Diba?
I think it's in addition to that, right? Again, it's two things. First, you're looking at GDP per capita of the country, and we're sitting less than $5,000, which is actually the baseline for huge spending. So if you're looking at other countries, other developed countries, US, Singapore, $50,000 GDP per capita, right? So the average person has $40,000. Sabi mo 2 million pesos worth of spending. Sa Philippines, 200,000 lang. So they have 10 times more spending power than us.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the reason why consumption has always been a growth story for the Philippines, plus the fact that we have one of the largest population in the world, average age of 25 years old, and still young, that the consumption in the medium term for the Philippines will just continue to grow. And I guess, again, that's the reason why we like the SM group so much also, because of that macroeconomic story that's, the backdrop that's happening on the Philippines.
Yeah, and naisip ko lang na we started with spending, and then kaya tayo nag-grow, guys, then dahil sa mga spending ninyo. So,
Diba?
make benefit from it na.
Yeah,
diba?
exactly. Totally agree. I think that's one way to look at it. Spending and how to buy stocks because of your spending.
Exactly. So there's so many ways, diba, to really manage your finance. And sabi nga nila, kasi when you search ChatGPT mo pa lang na parang financial tips and everything. But at the end of the day, diba, it's really more of understanding your mindset, your behavior. Maybe for someone who's lost in managing his or her finances, what's the advice that you can give them?
Nobody's really lost with regards
Okay.
to financing.
Yeah.
I think it's more you're just not ready.
Can you tell us more about
And
that?
the reason why it's because everybody knows that you have to save and invest. It's not let's be honest about it. You're not going to be working for the rest of your life. I mean, for some, I'll be working for the rest of my life, but for some, may not, right? So it's not really something that is lost. I think it's just they're not mature enough, or they're not just ready to see it yet. So they're just trying to enjoy whatever they have in the short term and forego the long-term benefit, because it's not tangible, right? All these things about long-term investment, it's not tangible yet. It's something that you cannot feel yet, right? So my advice, to all those is, again, look at it the bigger picture, right? Look at it from not just yourself. I mean, if you're going to have kids in the future, look at also their perspective, right? Because I guess that's probably one of the best ways for you to look at investments and look at savings.
Galing. I have so much more questions, but that's the reason why it is not the last episode. First of many. So maybe thank you again for watching. And if you have any questions or do you want to share anything,
Comment below,
Diba?
share, feel free to.
yeah, parang kasi on how to, if we really want to have more of these conversations, it's really nice to hear from you guys. So that is it for our first episode. So hope to see you on the next. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Okay na yan.